Hello and welcome to One Cool Thing, PC Mag's daily show where we show you one cool thing which we are testing out here in the PC Mag Labs. I'm Sasha Segan, this is Ajay Kumar, and today we have a cool phone for you if you are on Facebook watching us live at 10 a.m. Eastern on a weekday. Then please participate in the discussion, ask us about phones. We love to talk about phones. Social Pete will relay your questions and comments to us about phones and we will answer you. Maybe you are watching this on your phone. It could be a phone show about phones on your phone. If you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We have a new One Cool Thing every day. Consider coming over to Facebook at 10 a.m. Eastern on weekdays to participate in the live discussion. Today we have the Honor View 10, which was reviewed on PC Mag, and this is pretty much, I feel like this is, can we say this is the best mid-range phone available in the US right now?
Yeah, and it's in a really unique spot right now because OnePlus 5T is no longer being sold in the US. So if you're looking for a phone that is not going to cost you $700 and is also not like a budget phone, at $500, this is probably the single best unlocked $500 ranged phone you can get. Okay,
so the Honor View 10, it's $499 here in the US. It's sold unlocked through highhonor.com.
Yes, and not Best Buy specifically.
Right, right. It is compatible with the AT&T and T-Mobile networks. Let's step through some of the features here. What are we looking at?
So you're looking at, like, it's the tall and narrow design. It's a 18 by 9 aspect ratio, so it's a 1080p panel, but it's nice, it's bright, it's saturated. You're looking at
IPS LCD, not OLED, but IPS still a very LCD. Nice LCD.
Yeah, definitely a nice, good viewing angles, all of that. There is a front fingerprint sensor, and the nice part about it is that you can have a little bit of there's some navigation that you can use it as a home button. So on the back you have dual cameras, and these are interesting because you have a 20 megapixel and a 16 megapixel setup, and they're powered by Huawei's Kirin 970 processor, which has AI intelligence, which does image recognition.
Now, is this the typical Huawei deal where it's one black and white and one color, or are they both color?
They're both color. They're not. There's no monochrome, so it can do bokeh and it can do portrait mode shots. So you get that blur effect when you're taking pictures of, like a close-up object or someone's face. You get some 3D effects. But the unique part is it does scene recognition. There's a list of around 20 scenes it can recognize. So I took it out when it was snowing, and it has a snow recognition setting, and it'll adjust the exposure so the snow isn't blinding and it doesn't like wash out the entire scene. So these are all things that happen automatically, and that's because it has a 970, which is that dedicated AI core.
Now, can this thing shoot RAW as well as JPEG? Because I feel like when we get to these kinds of AI-enabled cameras, we see this in this phone, we see this in the Galaxy S9 too as well. They start making choices in their default JPEG mode that not everyone agrees with.
Yeah, it has pro photos. I don't see a RAW mode. I mean, you have manual controls. You can do, different kinds of settings and control it. But if you're shooting in auto mode, the AI features are kicking in automatically and adjusting.
Front-facing camera is also unusually high res, right?
It is 13 megapixels, which is good. It does not really have the same level of, so it doesn't really do a lot of recognition. You can point it at your face, and you can do front portrait mode, which is cool when it works. But most of the time, it's just your standard selfie camera.
Storage, RAM, headphone jack, then we'll get to a question.
So in that order, storage, 128 gigs of storage, which is a good amount. We like that. You can add an SD card up to 256, which is nice.
Wait, what about the 400? Can you add the 400?
Do we have 400? I didn't try it with the 400.
We don't have a 400 here, but if you can add a 256, you can add the 400 in general. So yeah.
Potentially, I think you can do up to 2 TB once they exist. What was the other one? 6 gigs of RAM. It's fast, it's responsive. For games, I played, I fired up some PUBG on this, and it did handle it, so that's nice.
Are we running Android 8?
You are running Android 8.1 Oreo.
But it's weird Android 8,
It is
right?
EMUI. There are a lot of extra features and settings and little toggles inside here. if that bothers you, I mean, it's not that big a deal to me because some of them are actually useful. You know, you have blue light filters, you have glove mode, you have ultra battery saving. It also has a headphone jack.
Let's take some honorable questions.
How is Huawei about getting Android updates? Do they usually get them in a pretty timely manner?
No.
No. No.
No. You might get maybe some security updates. You're probably not going to get another big update.
The only two companies that reliably, in the US, the only two companies that reliably update Android versions are Google and Motorola unlocked devices. I think that's a safe call, right?
Right, yeah. You might get, from Samsung and Sony, you might get one big update.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate like a big update for this.
Yeah. Let's take another question.
Where can you buy it?
So you can buy this at highhonor.com, which is Honor's own website. But also, I mean, if you type Buy Honor View 10 into Google, you do find retailers out there. I think B&H has it.
Right. I think it might be on Amazon. I know it was removed from Best Buy. So
yeah.
There are a select number of retailers you can buy it from, but
yeah.
nothing brick and mortar.
And now in terms of compatibility, if I can talk a little about the radios. So one thing that is interesting, and you all know if you watch this show that I'm kind of a radio geek and that sort of stuff is important to me. This has bands for AT&T and T-Mobile, but it doesn't have some of the more obscure or supplementary bands. So we don't have band 66 and 71 on T-Mobile, right?
Right.
We don't have band 30 on AT&T. So that means that, for instance, you're not going to get the new 600 megahertz rural coverage on T-Mobile. You're not going to get some of that city supplementary speed on AT&T that you would with band 30.
Right, and you're also not going to get things like, you know, there's no Wi-Fi calling, there's no VoLTE, there's so things like that.
Oh, there's got to be VoLTE. There's got to be VoLTE.
Let me see VoLTE. There is, yeah, okay, there is VoLTE. It was taken over by our full ad, so that's always good.
Yay!
But the list of bands is right here. So
yeah.
There's 2, 4, 5, 7, 12, and 17.
Yeah.
It does not have Wi-Fi, but
Wi-Fi calling, but it has to have VoLTE. Otherwise, it wouldn't fulfill the LTE standards at this point. Let's take another question.
Does the camera have image stabilization?
It does not have image stabilization. So you can shoot 4K video. It is a little bit jittery. So yeah, no image stabilization. It does do the AI adjustment for not video, but it'll do it for photos.
Now, one of my concerns about this phone, I have to point out, and this is to editorialize a little, is that the phone is in what I call the unbuying valley in the United States. And there is a market trend in the United States that is purely economic. I'm holding my nose because I'm trying not to sneeze on camera, by the way. And that is that people in the United States tend to have either under $300 to spend up front, or they have sufficient credit to pay for an expensive phone on a monthly payment plan. And so you have people who, we're a credit society. We work very heavily on credit and monthly payment plans. We're not an upfront payment kind of society. And so everybody who has enough credit to pay for a phone on a payment plan tends to buy what are effectively $600, $700 phones, the Galaxy S9s of the world, or at worst an LG V30.
Right.
You know, I mean an LG G6, G7.
Right.
V30 is a little more expensive. And if you don't have that credit, then in general, you only have, you know, in the $200 range to spend. And that's where the unlocked upfront phones are being sold. And so, like this spot, the $500 spot, it's a sweet spot in a lot of markets. It's huge in India. It's huge in Italy, I think, for some reason. But in the US, not a lot of people are buying phones at this price point because either they don't have $500, or if they have $500, they're paying monthly, and a top-of-the-line phone only looks like a couple more dollars a month.
Right, yeah, so it's the difference between paying like, you know, $25 or $30 a month for an S9 or an S9 Plus versus, you know, paying $500 upfront for this.
Right.
And I think there's a big gap between, so like the what we call budget it's like $200, and you get a great range of phones for that price. The G5 Plus is still a great phone, still very fast. And then it's a big jump, a $300 jump to $500. And once you're paying $500, I think the logic for a lot of people is just, why don't I just pay $700 for a flagship?
Right, especially because they are generally not paying the $500 or $700 up front at that point.
Right.
They're starting to say, oh, why don't I just pay $18 a month for a flagship? That's the way the US market works. That's why a lot of these mid-range phones really struggle. It's not about the quality of the phone, it's about the economic dynamics of the way credit works in the United States. Let's take another question.
What would you say to someone who's concerned that Huawei phones have like backdoors or malware or something like that?
No one has ever found any backdoors or malware in a Huawei phone. Huawei is the third largest smartphone manufacturer in the world. Their devices are used by hundreds of millions of people all around the world. Many of those people are security researchers. Many of those people are government employees at governments around the world, not in the actually maybe even in the US, because Huawei handsets aren't banned. You don't get fired from the US government for buying a Huawei handset personally. Okay, many of these people work at wireless carriers. Many of these people are very smart security people. Hundreds of millions of phones out on the market. No one, not one single person has been able to announce that they found a backdoor in a Huawei phone. And that says to me that we have to trust what the world has found, not the mysterious, oh, I'm scared of China penumbras with no evidence. That's at least my perspective. Let's take another question.
What's the screen made out of, and is it waterproof?
The phone is not waterproof. The screen is standard, so this is Gorilla Glass. I'm not sure what level of Gorilla Glass, but it's definitely Gorilla Glass. It's an IPS panel, so good viewing angles, nice colors. It is a 1080p display in a 18:9 aspect ratio.
Let's take another question.
So was the Best Buy removing the phone, that was just sort of fear-mongering?
As far as we know, Best Buy is removing the phone because of political pressure. Right now, there's a lot of political pressure around Huawei, and there's a lot of pressure for large companies such as wireless carriers not to carry Huawei products so that they are not treated badly by our government. And I believe that is what's going on. And I believe, and this is once more my personal view. Okay, my personal view is that this is a trade war issue. This is an issue where elements in our government don't want companies from mainland China to have more than a certain place in our market, much as mainland China has barred various US companies, such as Facebook, from having more than a certain place in their market. It's a two-way trade war, certainly, but I don't believe it's really around spying or backdoors. I believe it's around trade war. So, any more questions out there? Okay, so the Honor View 10. Did we give it an editor's choice? What's the editor's choice situation?
Yeah, it's 4 stars. It is not an editor's choice. And a lot of it is what we already talked about, because it's in an awkward position for the U.S. market, and we review for the U.S. market. And so it's kind of like straddles that price point between that $200 mid-range phone and then the $700 or $800 flagships, which you can buy from carriers. So it is a good unlocked phone. It's at $500. It has good hardware, good features, good camera. If you can get it if you're on AT&T and T-Mobile, firstly, and you're willing to pay $500 up front for an unlocked phone. So good phone, 4 stars, not an editor's choice.
So yeah, so Honor View 10, good phone, weird price point. We do recommend it. Thank you all for watching. This has been One Cool Thing with PCMag.com. If you are watching us on Facebook, you can return at 10 a.m. tomorrow Eastern for another cool thing. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Check back on PCMag's YouTube page daily for another cool thing. We'll have one every weekday.